So what is up, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about some personal tips which will help you in programming. And this is not written from a script. This is generally me talking and telling you how to program better. And let's get started. So my first thing you need to know is how to instruct well. What does this mean is, how do you write code? You can be good at reading, but are you good at writing? Now, the thing about programming is it's like baking. Let me give you an anatomy. You are a recipe maker. You make recipes and you tell your baker. Your baker in this instance is your computer. And you are the person writing the code. Now, the problem with the baker is the baker takes everything literally. And what happens is if you tell it something, it will do it. So if you're telling it to bake a cake and you say, hey, I might as well add some icing on it, it's going to do that. Okay. And if you make a spelling mistake or anything like that while writing your recipe and telling the baker, it's going to skip over it. And since it skipped over like an important step, it's going to end up failing. And whatever you're baking is going to be tasting terribly, or it might as well not even work. So reading and writing is the most important. But which is more important? It's obviously reading. The computer needs to understand what you're trying to write. And people, now for me, most of our programmers, like old programmers, they don't care about what other people look at their code. They just write code. And if it works, it works. And well, that's what you should do. If it works, it works. Now, some people, they make their code look pretty. They add stuff to it. Let's like some people who make recipes, they add colors like 1 tea, 2 spoons, like something like that. Just do that. Okay. You don't have to format it. You don't have to make it look pretty. It just has to work. Now, my second tip is switch to multiple languages. What do I mean by this is do multiple projects in different languages. And what do I mean by that is, let's say you're learning Python, we're working on a Python project, but you knew JavaScript. Now, like real life languages, you're going to lose touch of a language, which is why I recommend you to always to find an idea to do and always to switch around. So for Python, I can make an app which does something, and then in JavaScript, I can make something like a framework I'm making. Spring UI. I'm definitely linking it. Anyways, so try to switch, because if you don't, you will end up forgetting how to write and read in that language. And the thing about computers is they can understand a lot of languages. And the thing is, they use a translator to translate a binary into a language they can understand, which means they're basically just putting whatever you wrote in Google Translate. Now, what I was about to say is make sure that you know how to do languages, because one thing I made a mistake is I don't go back to languages I've learned often. Because of this, I end up forgetting them. And this is like the same for real life as well. You're going to end up forgetting languages you've learned before because you don't touch them, because you don't use them, because you don't speak them. You're going to lose touch. For example, I stopped programming in C# and I switched to web-based stuff like JavaScript and CSS, HTML. I was around these languages, which means I always knew how to write in this. But then as soon as I decided to go back saying, hey, I want to make a desktop application, I lost touch completely. I was like, how do I do this? I had to literally Google up everything on what is this? But the thing is, the same thing I'm Googling now was something I knew 5 months beforehand. So what I always recommend you is to always switch around so that you will always have touch on language as you go. Because if you have experience in multiple languages and you're always in touch of them, you know multiple languages. You're fluent in them. And it's not just for like actual real life languages. And the more languages you know, the more bakers you can hire, because, well, you know more languages. And since there's more bakers who speak that language, you know how to speak the language, you can talk to them. It's basically just helping yourself out. Now, my another tip is Stack Overflow is your best friend. What I mean by this is during your start times, you will always have errors. Now, the thing is, not even start times. For me and myself, and like a 4-year experienced programmer, I always check out Stack Overflow. Why? Is because sometimes the errors that I get, understand it, the person who made that software or library or anything, and always Stack Overflow has the answer. It is your number one friend. And your second number one friend is ChatGPT. I'm sorry. Now your second friend is ChatGPT, but Stack Overflow will always be your best friend. Remember this and always keep this in notes. Now, what other tips do I have in store for you? Personally, I would say is find an IDE you're comfortable with. What is an IDE is like a place where you program in. Find an IDE that you're comfortable in. Don't go with something you're uncomfortable with. Personally, I'm comfortable with VS Code. It has support for multiple languages: Python, JavaScript, C Sharp, all the good stuff, which means it's a pretty good place for me. But you need to find a pretty good place for you, and you can use IntelliJ, VS Code, anything, Vim, NeoVim. It's your choice really, because it's usually your preference. Now, my last tip I think I'm going to be giving, or maybe or may not, correct me if I'm not myself, is how do you write code? Think of it like this: you are a person, and you are instructing someone to do something, like the baker anatomy I've gave you. Try to do something like that. You are trying to, well, give instructions to the baker. Now, writing the instructions can be hard. So when you before you give the instructions to the baker, make sure that your instructions are correct. Make sure to check online if that's the correct amount of flour you need to use, or that's the correct amount of sugar, or anything like that. Because if you don't, then it's not gonna work. It's not the baker's fault for messing up. It's you, because you didn't tell him what you wanted him to do. Reading is easy. You can read what you wrote. What you can read what others wrote. Why? Is because you can understand the instructions, right? But how do you make sure that someone can understand your instructions? Now, most programming languages are in English, and because they're in English, they're basically like English as well. You just say, "Hey, print this," or no, if money is less than $5, print hello, or else say you have more money than $5. Very simple. It's like English. You're just saying, if you have more money, say this. If you don't have enough money, say this. It's a very easy concept. But programming is not just that, my friend. I'm sorry. There's syntax. There's much more to programming. And if I tell you, programming is English but worse. It has syntax and just mostly annoying. It's just 10 times more annoying. I know you're like, but then how do I understand it? My last tip is to watch YouTube. I know you've seen videos saying don't go to YouTube, don't watch tutorials, don't do that. Do it. If you're wondering how I am here today, is because I watched YouTube tutorials 4 years ago, and I saw this and saying, so this is how I do that. And then after watching those YouTube tutorials, I went and created my own project. And during my own project, I searched online. Now, if I wanted to make something, I'd watch another YouTube tutorial, copy that, and put it into my other project. What I mean is, you're learning and using that in your own project. Do this. This is going to help you most definitely. And thing is, programming is not just about typing and writing. It's not about typing and reading. It's also about, hold on, let me cook. I need to think, because I said that. I have to finish my line. But it's the way, if it's correct or not. It doesn't matter if it's ugly as hell. It doesn't matter if it looks wrong. As long as it works, you're good. And that is my motto. If it works, then it works. If it doesn't, then fix it and make it work. And that is my motto. I don't care whether if it looks ugly as hell. If you want, go fix it. But my instructions still work. Okay? Instructions still work. They're perfectly fine. They work. And the baker I hired him, right? And he's working under me, so he will understand my instructions no matter what. He will not tell me, "Hey sir, can you make this more pretty? Hey sir, can you format this?" No. He will read it and he will say, "Okay, fine." He is not going to complain to me. But another person my other co-owner would be like, "Hey, why don't you make this look more pretty?" And well, he is your co-owner, so you should follow him. If you're working on a solo project, prettiness is not your number one need. It's the fact that it works. Now, what other tips do I have in store for you? My last tip is actually related to programming. My other tips I gave you is just how to program and like more miscellaneous. But this is topic on what should be a starting language. Now, personally, I started off with not Python, not C++, not C, but C sharp. Yes, you heard me. I started with C sharp. Why? I wanted to make an app using C sharp. C sharp was my beginning. Now, should I have done that? No, yeah, actually, yes. And why? Is because technically C sharp does belong in the family of the C. And C is something you should start first learning and not any other language. Because C is basically the core of programming. Almost every other language is built on top of C. You see? That's funny, isn't it? So it's literally something you need to know. And don't learn Python first, because if you learn Python, it's gonna mess your mind. Okay, it's like learning Japanese and Chinese. Don't do that. You're gonna get confused. You should learn Chinese then Japanese. Okay, now that's all I have. That's all the tips I have in store for today. I hope you guys can enjoy my videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.